Hey there, Patriots of the American Republic is back with another guest. This time it is Orbital Bacon. Orbital Bacon is a friend of mine who is a voice actor, and he's actually working on helping me with one of the films that I have on another YouTube channel. So he does like about 6 different characters. Really talented guy. I thought I'd bring him in for the subject matter that we're going to talk about. So, Orbital Bacon, how you doing, pal?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Thanks for making time and joining on. This is something that's up our alley, and that's why I wanted to have you on this particular channel for this particular subject matter.
Awesome. It's good
Cool.
to be here, man.
So, yeah, absolutely. So for many years, Hollywood has brought imagination to life, entertained millions, all while making billions in the process. For many people, going to Hollywood is pretty much a dream come true, right? Especially if you're working in the industry. Unfortunately, over the last several years, Hollywood, much like many other areas such as corporate America, sports, academia, have become overrun by politics and identity politics, which is all under the same category. Many folks across the pop culture industry have been pointing out Hollywood's decline in revenue, though. Disney reportedly lost over $120 billion in 2022, and they are projected to lay off about 7,000 employees in this current year of 2023, with who knows what else is coming down the pipeline, right? Recent films such as Shazam 2, animated films like Buzz Lightyear, which today was reported that Disney lost over $100 million on that film, and then animated movies like Strange World fell short of their expected earnings, right? Which has all added on to that decline. So what is the cause of this decline, right? Well, we can certainly speculate, but one thing is for sure. Hollywood can no longer use the pandemic as an excuse for their failures, as movies like Avatar, The Way of the Water, crushed the box office. And most recent, which is what we're going to talk about now, the animated film of Super Mario Brothers is dominating and setting records for an animated film. So what makes this movie different from the current trending decline that we've seen in previous movies? So based on that, Jason, let me get your thoughts, first of all, on the movie itself. You've gone to see it, correct?
Yeah, I saw the Super Mario movie, and I can see where both sides were able to take advantage of things that were in that movie and twist it around and try to make it seem for whatever message they were trying to push. Because I've seen both sides. I've seen the anti-woke crowd, say, "Oh, Peach is a girl boss and it's woke and this and that," which it's not. And then I've seen the woke crowd go, "Oh yeah, see, they show how useless Mario is and all this kind of stuff," which is also not the case. So it's very much a straight down the line classic adventure movie. You mentioned people complaining about it being traditional. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If it works, it works. But yeah, that's what it is. It's a classic adventure movie, which just felt like fun. It felt like actual fun. I didn't feel like I was getting preached at. I didn't feel like any messages or agendas or anything like that were getting shoved down my throat or were like ham-fisted in there, real clunky. There was one line that was kind of cringe. I wouldn't even say it was necessarily woke or anything. It was just kind of cringy. When Toad says, "That's how you princess," and I don't like when people do that whole like I can't adult today, like where they make a verb out of a noun. Like I can't adult today. Yeah, it's like baby talk. And so it was like that type of humor on top of a little hint of that girl power stuff, like, "Oh yeah, that's how you princess," like, during a badass moment, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, see,
it was cringy.
I look at that in a different manner. I look at it as that's how you princess in comparison to other princesses, right? Not in comparison to like a king or a prince or something like that nature, right? Like I took that line as specific to the gender.
No, and like I said, don't get me wrong. I didn't equate that more to the woke side as much as I did to just cringe.
Right.
It was just a cringe line, bad humor.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing is for sure that, like we said, it's dominating at the box office, right? It pulled in, here's some basic numbers: 204.6 million domestically, and then 377 million globally within a 5-day weekend, which puts it, as a success. From what I understand, it unseated Frozen 2, which, if I'm not mistaken, had the highest with like 350 some odd million or somewhere around there. So it defeated it by a good chunk, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that speaks to the. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a record all on its own. And actually, when you look at like what's in that vicinity, right? As far as animated films, it's up there, right? It's being compared to like, live action films like Endgame and Avatar and stuff like that, right? I mean, an animated film to be in that same category is unheard of, right?
Right.
So some additional numbers that were just revealed yesterday. As a matter of fact, it was reported that as of yesterday, the 14th, it crossed the 500 million mark internationally. So let's just quickly, do I have that? Yes, let's take a look at that real quick, just so that we can have some proof in the pudding. So I don't know if you can see my screen, but yeah, as you can see here, box office sensation Super Mario Brothers crosses record at 500 million globally. That's as of yesterday. That's not including whatever comes in today and whatever comes in tomorrow. So that's a whole lot of cash, and it's projected that it could potentially make 659 million by the end of this weekend. As a matter of fact. So I mean, that's good news for the Mario Brothers.
That's amazing. And that's just opening weekend, right? This is still opening
weekend. Yep,
Yeah.
As you can see right here, Super Mario Brothers movie mushroomed to 659 million worldwide through Sunday international box office. Again, that's a projection, I would imagine. And here's the key kicker: is that there's certain countries that it hasn't premiered over there yet, like in Japan. It hasn't premiered there yet. I don't know now what their market is. But I mean, this is their ballpark.
Nintendo. It's a Japanese company.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to imagine it's going to do numbers over there.
You got to imagine, it would be absurd for it not to pull another, 1 to 200. Again, I don't know what their numbers are, but I mean, if we did 204
it's not going to be huge because Japan's a small country, but I would imagine that they are excited for this movie because it's essentially a Japanese product, or at least based on. Let's say that it's based on a Japanese product, and because Nintendo had such a heavy hand in the production, which is why everything looks on model, on character. They're not going to dislike it. Like a lot of the stuff that they see coming out of the West, the remakes and reboots and all that, the swaps, everybody, they crap all over it because it doesn't look right. But this looks right. Nintendo had a heavy hand in it, so they're gonna love it. All I'm sure it'll be dubbed, obviously, in Japanese, so that it doesn't matter what the American voice cast is. They're gonna love it. They're gonna love it.
They're gonna love it, and I'm thinking that they'll pull somewhere in that vicinity within the entire time that it's out there. I don't think it'll have like a $200 million weekend or something like that. But I mean, I don't know how long it's going to run out there. But it's got to pull in numbers, and if this projection comes close to that, I mean, it could add on, get us closer to that 800 million mark with Japan's help, right? So I mean, there's a good possibility that this movie could make $1 billion. I don't know if it'll get there or not. I really don't know. Supposedly it'll be in the theaters for like 45 days before it goes to streaming. So some people may hold out, but I really wouldn't recommend it. It's such a great movie that the entire family is going to have a phenomenal time, in my opinion.
Well, and here's the thing you also have to take into consideration. A lot of people don't really take this into consideration, is movie runtimes. When a movie like, for instance, the new Transformers movie, or any of the Transformers movies for that matter, they're all 2 hours plus, some even approach 3 hours. That's literally twice the runtime. This movie clocked in at like just under an hour and a half, man. I mean, this movie was in and out real quick. It was a nice brisk pace, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like Rise of Skywalker ADD bad, but it was a brisk pace. But that's the thing, is you got to take that into consideration, that this movie can play twice for every one 3-hour movie. You know, those big epics that like Marvel been putting out, the bit, you know, DC, any of Star Wars, any of these big, I mentioned Transformers just because that's off the top of my head, but you know, just take any of these big superhero sci-fi blockbuster franchises that they've been sort of, you know, running the bottom of the barrel of recently. But they're still putting out these 2 and 3 hour movies. Those only get one play for every 2 that this can come this can bring.
Yeah, that's true. Turnover.
Yeah.
Turnover.
So you have to.
Right.
That's what a lot of people don't realize. And some people were kind of ragging. I've heard a couple people rag this movie for, it was too short or too fast paced or whatever. I'm going, man, it was fine for me. It felt like I was on like a Universal Studio ride or something. You know, felt like I was getting my money's worth for a ticket. And it's smart. It's smart on the studio's behalf, so they can get more plays in a day.
Listen, there's always going to be somebody that complains about something, and you know, the fact that this is making the Googles of money that it's making. I think all the naysayers are absolutely wrong based on that alone, right? So let's actually get into the naysayers, right? Let's get into the critics versus the audience. So Rotten Tomatoes had a critic score of 57%. It's actually updated as more come in. It's actually now at 58, and an audience score of 96%. Yeah, the rhetoric seems to be changing as I read through their critiques, right? But when you look at the earlier ones, they're trashing it, right? And so I think one of the biggest, or I shouldn't say biggest, but a very well-known movie critic is someone named Grace Randolph. I ran into her, a couple years ago. Honestly, her voice is like nails on a chalkboard for me. So I listened to like maybe 2 videos, 3, and it was very clear where she is politically and ideology. And so I just I couldn't listen to any more. But I came across some recent videos of her doing a review to this movie. Where she completely trashes it. She spends like 13 minutes trashing the film nonstop. She says very, very little positive things about it and trashes it. I would say she probably would, like if I had to rate her personal score, it would probably be in the 20s and 30s versus the 50s, the way the other critics are, right? So let's actually get into her first video here and check out what she's actually saying. Are you able to hear that?
Universal knows, though.
Yeah.
Universal knows, which is why the embargo is lifting mere hours before the movie premieres. I don't think this is going to make $1 billion. I think it might still have a big opening weekend. I don't even know if it's going to make it to Friday. I think word of mouth on this is going to be toxic, or whatever toxic goo there is in Nintendo world that destroys stuff that it touches. So let me
the same as a toxic goo on your eyes?
A lot of you aren't going to believe me, but I think you're going to be seeing a lot of bad reviews drop right now. And yeah, it's unfortunately true. Now, as I've mentioned before when discussing this movie, I don't play Nintendo games, right?
Well, so that's basically her initial review within that 13 minutes or however long it is. So I noticed a couple of words that she used, which were toxic. Not hitting, it's not going to hit $1 billion, right? It's a terrible film, right? And then this last part is really interesting, where she mentions she's not a gamer. She doesn't play video games. You would think common sense is this is a movie based on a video game. You might want to get familiar with it, even if it's a little bit, if you're going to accurately critique it, so that way you know the origins, where it comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
What this clearly brain damaged raccoon is saying is that she's admitting that the movie is not geared towards her. She's not a gamer. It's not an area of interest. So she's admitting it. The movie's not made for her anyway. So of course she's not going to like it. So it sounds like a very biased, personal bias review. And now I know critics are going to be biased. I mean, that's what they do. They're critics. But I would be more inclined to take the advice or the criticism of someone who was critiquing it based on the actual merits of the film, especially if they have any sort of background in film studies, filmmaking, so that they're talking about, okay, the actual things that can be critiqued. Okay, well, they made some good points. But if she's going, well, I don't like video games anyway. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm giving her too much. I don't like video games anyway. It's well, you don't like this, you're not gonna like it. But that's all kidding aside. You made some good points there, which are the buzzwords, and you always got to hear. It's like a dog whistle, like code words. And when you hear him say things like toxic or problematic, that's another one. If you hear him say problematic, you always look out for those types of words, because then it kind of clues you in onto like where they sort of where their mind is sort of at, their mindset sort of at. And in addition to obviously the gamer comment, there's a lot of things that she's telling you, the viewer, the person watching this review, that sort without saying it out loud, so that her review doesn't hold much water. Now, another thing I wanted to comment on is the not hitting 1 billion. This is something that I've talked to you about before in regards to our fan film that you mentioned at the start of the stream. Is I love it when critics, or especially haters, because at this point she's in hater territory. She's not like a critic anymore. She's like sliding into hater territory. We have actual haters, and I love it when they give quantifiable remarks. You're not going to get this number of views, or you're not going to make this amount of money, because then
you're going to take an L. No one's going to watch it.
Yeah, because if you leave it sort of abstract, if you leave it sort of like, oh, the movie's going to suck, well, that's subjective. You're going to think it sucks regardless, even if everyone else thinks it's good. But if you say the movie's not going to make 1 billion, and then it makes 1 billion, you're done. Like you have to eat crow at that point. So I love when these people give quantifiable remarks like this, because now you already said that it's approaching the 800 million mark. I think it's going to hit 1 billion personally. If Avatar could do it, this movie can do it. So yeah, she's all the warning signs are there. She's using words, buzzwords that let you know. I mean, you can kind of just look at her. She's got the crazy eyes. So yeah, it's all the warning signs are there.
So here's the funny part with her not hitting a billion, because you could say that I don't think it's going to hit 1 billion because you're being realistic versus hating. And she came across hating because she even said, I don't think it's going to make it till Friday. It actually blew Friday out the water, right? So clearly this was, to your point, a hating stance. And as you can see here, she's got all her comments. She's like, yikes. And then she's got here a horrible script. Why is this so bad? And girl power. And then, Toad and Chris Pratt. She's a Chris Pratt hater, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's go back to the comparisons between the critics and how out of touch they are. Like, I was reading some of those comments from the critics, and Super Mario movie is Illumination style done at its absolute worst, one critic said. Fast-paced and entertaining, if also lacking any real emotional substance. It works best as a homage to the games. I don't know what that person saw, but I thought the emotional relationship between Mario and Luigi was really, really well done. It showed loyalty, brotherhood, support, family, unity, right? It showed a number of different emotions. And as a matter of fact,
listen to how he says as a negative, it works best as an homage to the game. What do you think it's supposed to be?
Correct. Like, that's supposed to be a critique. But here's the funny part, and I guess we'll elaborate a little bit more on the Princess Toadstool part. But I felt like he got a lot of his strength from her. Like, she was his support. The way I would imagine, the way that my wife is. My wife is my support, right? Where I'm weak, she's strong, and vice versa. Right? It's not
she
who's
came
better
across
than the
as
other.
Very nurturing. It's something I was going to get into when we talked about the whole girl boss aspect more in depth. But that's exactly you're basically in my mind, because that's exactly what I was thinking. She came across much more nurturing, like an actual woman would be.
Yep. Well, we know Grace is probably like one of these modern feminists, right? That just hate on men.
She is.
I bet she loves Captain Marvel.
Well, let's again. All the warning signs are there in this freeze frame that you have. Conveniently, she's holding up her left hand. I don't see a wedding ring. So She is a single, soon to be, if not already, crazy cat lady. So you know how.
I was just gonna say, I wonder how many cats she's got.
You know, how many cats she's got, more than she's got eggs. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's so funny. Let's go on to the next part that really confused me about her review, which was inappropriate. She called the film inappropriate. Now let's take a listen to this, because this is just dumbfounded me. But
again, that was so bizarre that there were cartoons running around in there. Back to the story, I would also say it's a little disturbing. Because apparently in the games, Bowser, I had to look it up, Bowser is obsessed with Princess Peach and has been for a very long time. But in today's marketplace, post-Me Too, to hear Bowser declare that he's going to ask Princess Peach to marry him, which apparently isn't a spoiler because I looked it up and it happens in the games all the time, but he's like, I'm going to ask Princess Peach to marry me, and like his little sycophant sorcerer is like, what if she doesn't want to? And he's like, then I'll destroy her kingdom and kill everyone she knows. And you're like, wow, that's stalker behavior. And I would say, kind of makes this not appropriate for children, quite frankly.
In fact, he's the bad guy. He's the villain, you dumbass.
And that's it.
So you missed that last part. Here's where I want to close with it, because she says,
couldn't help
no,
myself.
You're good.
Brainless raccoon.
You're good. Check this out.
The movie is about who's going to date Princess Peach, and that's it.
That's not what the movie about. That's not what the movie was about. So let's tackle the first thing that you popped out there. It's a villain, right? No one wants to mimic what a villain does, and that's why it's a villain.
I love how she goes,
right?
Ooh, kind of stalker behavior. Oh, you mean like what a bad guy would do? You know?
Yeah.
You mean like something like evil? You know? And this is the result. This is the result of all these just garbage Disney movies where the villains are now sympathetic and humanized. You know, everybody's got this. Oh, their mom was killed by Dalmatians. That's why Cruella de Vil hates Dalmatians. You know what I mean? Like just really dumb stuff that they throw into these villains' backstories, whether it's a reboot or even an original villain for the few things that they're still original out there. But they have you noticed they make all these villains like real sympathetic, and this is somebody you can tell this is somebody who that's because she doesn't play the games, she doesn't know anything about it. She watches all these things where the villain is supposed to be sympathetic, and you know, you've seen it, all these girls online, these lonely, just like her, these lonely women online, they crush on these villains because the bad boy, they're sympathetic bad boy.
Yeah, that's true.
You've seen it.
But I think we're getting into a phase where it's like that for every villain. Like you know, the recent Spider-Man film was like that, No Way Home, and it brought in a good amount of money.
It now, yeah.
People are aware. I mean, they saved every villain, like, so that expunges all the death and destruction that they did. You know, it's what happens when they go back to their dimension? Are they just all of a sudden forgiven? They're pardoned? It's unrealistic, you know.
One of the notes of praise that I saw about this movie was that it was nice to have a villain who was just evil for the sake of being evil, just having fun, being a bad guy. Correct. And that's what it's supposed to be. There's a whole. I've been brushing up on my religious studies, you know, my Christian studies lately, and a lot of things have been being revealed to me. Stuff that, you know, there's stuff that's in the Bible, but then God will give you, you know, He'll reveal things to
Revelations.
you. Revelations, yeah, through those messages. And one of those things that I realized is why we have the heroes and the villains in almost all of our stories. You know, it doesn't just have to be superheroes. So, you know, every you know, action movies, westerns, you know, they all have heroes and villains. You know, it's heroes and villains, and the bad guys. And you can see, like I said, when people say, "Oh, it's so nice to just have like a villain that's just pure evil," you know, and they don't like the sympathetic. You know, a lot of people are getting fed up with the sympathetic stuff. They just want a pure evil villain because that's what we used to have. That's what works, right? And the reason that is, and to get to my point about what God revealed to me, is that we put that in the stories because whether people realize it or not, every time we're doing these heroes and villains, it's a callback to Christianity. It's a callback. It's good versus evil. It's good versus evil. And the heroes are at least they used to be. This is why all these modern heroes, especially these feminist ones, you know, that are just handed everything, you know, they don't work, they don't click with anybody. But the classic heroes, they always go through suffering, the pathos of a hero, right?
Yep.
And because Jesus went through suffering, right? And the villain is not sympathetic. He's not humanized. The villain is evil in a way, and we may find it fun or amusing or whatever, but because it's so detached from us, he's not sympathetic. He's not humanized, because the villain is the devil. The devil's not one of us. So when you humanize the villain, when you make him sympathetic, you know, give him this like sob story of a background or whatever, you know, he's bullied, whatever, and try to make it relatable to people, to now where the villains are one of you, one of me, one of somebody in the audience. That's no good. That's no good, because the story is meant to be good versus evil, and we shouldn't be relating with evil. That's not what we're meant to connect with.
You're absolutely 100% correct, and that's exactly where I would disagree with Grace, on top of all the other stuff, is the fact that this is not a story about who gets to date Peach. It's a story of good versus evil. That's the essential. That should be the base of every movie. That's all it is. It's us good people versus the villain who wants to conquer, destroy, kill, right?
Yes.
And that's it.
Like the devil does. And we shouldn't relate. They shouldn't be sympathetic. They shouldn't be a humanized character. And that's it. And when she has a problem with that, you know, this is how brainwashed these people are, you know?
Now, one thing I will say, and it's not in this. I only looked at the pieces where she's ripping it apart. She, like I said, she said very little positive things, but she did say about Jack Black's performance in this. Jack Black was phenomenal. He was, the best, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed him as Bowser, and his singing, his acting was phenomenal. Everybody did a phenomenal job. We'll get to Chris Pratt in a minute, but I do think, in my opinion, how I felt, Jack Black stole the show. Every time he opened his mouth, and his Peaches song was hysterical. I had tears coming out of my eyes with the Peaches song.
Yeah, did you see the reprise of it after the credits?
I did. I was dying. I was so funny. Now, let's get into the actual hate. There's a number of things, and she has some of them on here. But here's what she does acknowledge, and it's in another video. Now, what's interesting, she doesn't go back and correct anything that she said in this video. She doesn't acknowledge how off she was. What she tries to do in her next video is try to justify, find little nuances here and there to support her apparent position, or she doesn't even really acknowledge it. But check this out. I do want to see if you capture some of her trigger words that she uses here. Let's see, video 3.
As I said, I've been able to get into other mythologies, but I just couldn't get into this movie despite being a ready and willing participant. I was like, come on, Nintendo World, indoctrinate me.
Did you catch that? Indoctrinate me.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the funny part. Which side is indoctrinating which side? Which side right now is shoving all this leftist garbage down your throat that people are actually starting to puke it out, thankfully? Who's indoctrinating? Who's going to the schools and trying to going to libraries and trying to sway innocent children and confusing them about their identity, how they look at themselves, how they look at everything in the world, and so on and so forth? We're just trying to watch a film and be entertained. They're the ones who are trying to force a message in every single film that they produce. So who's indoctrinating who?
This is actually a tactic. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But the thing about it, though, is it doesn't surprise me, because this is a tactic that they have been using tirelessly for a while now, which is that once they catch on to the words that we're using that are working, because a lot of words get thrown around from both sides. They'll call us all the istophobe stuff. We've called them degenerates and woke-tards, wokies, all this. But a lot of it doesn't stick. A lot of it doesn't stick. It's just kind of going back and forth back. But every now and then you'll get something that sticks. Like when we started calling them groomers, they really didn't like that. They really didn't like that. When we started calling them groomers. So you know what they did? they started looking at things where they could call us groomers. As moronic as it may have been, as illogical as it may have been, like when they would try to say, oh, if you're going to call us grooming, then this is grooming, and it would be just like a picture of a regular family or so, like you could groom like regular biology is basically what they were implying. And so it would be nonsensical, but it didn't stop them from doing it. And what that ends up doing is watering it down, just like all the words that they throw, because they're the ones who throw around stuff to the point that it's watered down. Because even though you'd see plenty of people saying groomer or calling people groomers, it was reserved for actual grooming activity. I would never really see it hurled at anyone willy-nilly, with few exceptions, of course, but like, for the most part, it was like when you saw the drag stuff going on, or you saw the stuff being injected into kids' programs and things like that. Schools, things like that. Then you would see the groomer word getting thrown around, but that was deservedly, right? But see what they'll do.
If you're trying to sexualize children or talk to children, little children, minors, about anything sexual, I would put that under the groomer category.
Exactly. But what they'll do is they'll come in. And then they'll go, well, anytime they see you posting something with your family, posting something about marriage, posting something, they were even doing it when people would post something about training their kids how to use guns or just anything about guns.
Yeah.
And they was, oh, that's grooming. And so they would start saying it over and over and over, left and right, like they always do with all their other istophobe words. And now it's like groomers lost a lot of its punch. So I've noticed that, and that's just one example. Like I said, this is something that they've done with all the words. But indoctrination is the most recent, because that's what people, like you just pointed out, sorry for being long-winded here, but that's, as you just pointed out, that's what people have sort of recently, finally, in my opinion, because I've been seeing it for a while, but it's finally people are really in mass picking up on the mass indoctrination that they are indeed pushing. And when they start to see, just like, inflation, remember they wanted to change the definition of inflation. Anytime words start going around, they go, they either want to change the definition or they want to use it until it's watered down. And so she's
correct. I mean, look at for instance, illegal immigration. It's called undocumented. No, it's not. It's illegal immigration.
They're dreamers now. Yeah. And then they got dreamers now and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's what she's doing here. Is she is saying, indoctrinate me, Nintendo World or Mario World or whatever. Because now she wants to throw that around like as if that's what we're doing, the same that they're doing. It's a tactic they've been doing, and it's so stupid, and you can see right through it. I hope people wake up to this stuff as much as they're waking up to all their other tactics, because it's all bullshit. Pardon my friend.
Yeah. So let me take it a step further, because here she could say, no, I just want to be immersed by the Nintendo world. That's what she meant. No, that's not what she meant, because she's been hating on this film, and in a segment a little bit further in another video, she talks about the culture war and how this is a conservative movie, or how conservatives are hailing this. So I know that she's indirectly talking about what we're talking about, the indoctrination, right? It's almost like a slap in the face to us that we call them and that they're indoctrinating us. So, but let's finish the video. I think there's some more here that I wanted to touch on, but let's go back to this.
So I thought about it. I saw it last night, and I've been like, why couldn't I get into this movie? And this morning, Eureka, it clicked, and I realized the problem. The Super Mario Brothers movie, this latest one. Of course, they did the live-action one many years ago. But while this is supposed to be an origin story where Mario and Luigi do discover the Mushroom Kingdom for the very first time, I didn't even know it was called the Mushroom Kingdom. I had to look it up. It's not even made clear in the movie. But the movie is written for fans and fans only. Nothing is explained to the audience. Not the world, not the characters, not the circumstances, and not even really the point. Now, some of you might be like, good, I'm a fan, and I just want to get to it. I mean, there's nothing to get to, but, a good screenwriter, screenwriting, it's always been disrespected in Hollywood, but this is it's at its lowest point right now. Like, a good screenwriter can make this fun for everyone, right?
So I don't know what she's talking about, because we get a really good introduction to Mario and Luigi. They're plumbers. They're, it looks like from an Italian background, right? We get introduced to their family. Heck, I didn't even know they had a mom, a dad, an uncle. Maybe that comes in the video games later down, because I think after like one of the Mario parties, I kind of stopped playing it. But I thought that was all great. It helped me introduce. We had a flashback to Peach's origin. We don't know much about the Toads, but they're from a different dimension, and they're a bunch of little people that are adorable, to quote one of them, right? We get an island with different kingdoms. There's Donkey Kong's on the other side, and Bowser's part of his. I don't know what this lady's talking about. We get enough background to know who these characters are.
There's a couple of things I wanted to comment, because I'm wondering, like, what movie did she watch, or not even that. Did she watch the movie? Did she actually watch it? Did she read a synopsis? Did she have a friend tell her that actually saw it, tell her like what happened? Because they say the words Mushroom Kingdom multiple times in the movie. In fact, it maybe not right away. Obviously, it is an origin story, so it's not like they just have like a text crawl at the beginning. Long ago in the Mushroom Kingdom, they don't just tell you it right away. But many times throughout the duration of the film, especially once Mario is there, they mention the Mushroom Kingdom. Peach even says the name, because when you were saying there's Donkey Kong's area, it's the Jungle Kingdom, because she calls it that too. They say the names of all of this in the film. She says if the Jungle Kingdom falls, or I'm sorry, if the Mushroom Kingdom falls, then the Jungle Kingdom is not far behind. They call the what was it, the Badlands or the Darklands or whatever, where Yoshi or not Yoshi, Luigi fell into.
Luigi. Yep.
They call out at least once the names of almost all the territories. I think the only one that they don't name was the Penguin Country. I don't know, Ice Country, I guess.
Well, correct. And they showed a map when they're doing their strategic planning. The mushroom people, they show a map of, like, from an aerial view of where all the kingdoms are. So I mean, again, I don't know. To your point, I don't know if she watched the same movie I did, or if she even watched it or not. But it's there, and we don't need everything explained in the first movie. It's an hour and a half. Do what needs to be done, and then based on the success, we can go developing even more in the second and hopefully the third film, right? So I think her criticism is just way off basis.
Oh, 100%. And this goes back to what I said too about, like, how she's clearly been brainwashed. Maybe she's an actual fan of this modern movie way, because modern movies with the tongue-tied, sorry. Modern movies going with the sympathetic villain thing also do a lot of spoon feeding, a lot of exposition or explaining. Yes, they do. It's no longer show not tell. Now it's tell not show. And so if she's not spoon fed the information, she feels like it wasn't given to her, or not in the movie at all. I mean, she claims it wasn't in the movie at all. When I can quote at least one instance alone verbatim where Peach mentions
You're absolutely right, and I think this person is an intelligent enough person. I mean, like I said, I've heard some of her reviews, so I don't think that she's an unintelligent person. I think she has a bias. Obviously, her political ideology is interfering with her actual duty of critiquing a movie with unbiased analysis, and here's where it comes in. Here's where we can tell that it is biased. And I hear there's two things to it. Number one, it's not the type of film that has the three magic words of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's number one. And then number two, it's the fact that it has Chris Pratt, which is an open Christian conservative. And we've got this video she shot yesterday, and let's listen in from her own words what she says about it.
Woo, that's amazing. That's impressive. It's only Friday. We haven't even gotten to Sunday yet. I was like, should I save this to talk about until Movie Math on Sunday? Who knows where it'll be on Sunday? I mean, I don't think it'll get to $1 billion in a single weekend, but who knows? I mean,
I thought it wasn't getting to $1 billion. Right. It wasn't even getting to Friday.
I mean, Look at Chris Pratt there. He did a video promoting a new Mario product where you too can own a gold coin, a life-size gold coin, and he was promoting that. But this is a very nice, not only is this fabulous for Illumination Entertainment, but it's very good for Chris Pratt, who, some people are saying, oh, he's not having a career slowdown. He is having a career slowdown. He doesn't have any major projects where he's the star that are going forward. He's having a very good couple of months right now, but, actors are always trying to book a couple of projects ahead because, you're only as good as your next project. So I think he should be able to get something off of this. I mean, he clearly can sell movie tickets, and that is the requisite for a film star. I just want to clarify, I have no problem with Chris Pratt being a religious individual. It's his evangelical behavior that bothers me. His trying to convert it to others. That's what bothers me in particular about Chris Pratt. He can do whatever he'd like in his personal life. I just don't want to hear about it. That's how I feel. And I do.
Why don't you tell that to the rainbow people?
Get that? It's exactly what I was going to say. Now they're gonna split hairs and say it's one's religion versus one's. Well, it used to be a sexual preference. Now it's you're born that way, right? Again, going back to how they change things, right? Like you mentioned. So no, it's a cult at this point because if I can't criticize it, if I can't speak against it for fear of losing my livelihood or my job or whatever the case may be, like it is in Hollywood, right? You either go along with the flow or you're out, right? Then it's a cult. Like why can't they trash the name of Jesus Christ and his image and anything that he represents, but we can't talk about the LGBTQ plus community? Let's keep quiet. Wow, really? And we can't criticize it even with the safety of children involved because children were kind of like the all in all. You can't cross that line. Now it's no. Now it's like we got to let these people do whatever they want to children, and we can't say anything like they're doing right now in Canada. Canada's actually passing a law where you cannot protest any drag queens going to library events and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what they've been after, man. We should have never normalized homosexuality. They should have never been allowed to marry.
Well, I mean, from a religious aspect, I agree with you. Gays have been around for, from the beginning of time, and from the most part, it's always been, hey, I just want to be with the person that I'm. That's cool. That's fine. That's your choice, as long as you're not imposing it on others. Which was always the stance and the position, but now that's changed. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good way to get into this current segment, or do I have this geared up for a little bit later? Yeah, I have this geared up for a little bit later. Let's go into, now she showed her hatred towards, or her haterade towards Chris Pratt, and it's because he's conservative, it's because he's his faith, and that's undeniable. Now, here's another video where I actually do agree with her in the girl power aspect of things. Let's check this out.
I am a little tired, though, of girl power for the sake of girl power characters. Like, if you're not going to fully develop them, I just get frustrated because I know certain groups are going to complain. You should have justification for things. It's like if you're not going to do it right, don't do it. And again, she's all girl power, but yet the movie is just about who she's going to date. She's a princess in name only. I didn't see her make any rules or control the kingdom or anything.
What?
She just kind of went on a date with Mario, and Bowser was really jealous about it. And you're like, is this really what this movie is about?
So okay. My gosh, go ahead.
I'm convinced she didn't see it. I'm convinced a friend told her what happened. I'm convinced.
Yeah. So I agree with her. I don't like the girl power for being the sake of a girl power. However, I don't think that's what's going on here. Yeah, the trailer, I'll be honest with you, the trailer does kind of give that girl power impression, which kind of like, I don't want to go watch this. But after reading reviews before having seen it, I was like, okay, this seems normal. And then when I saw the movie, it makes sense why she's pretty tough. She's a human amongst all these little toads, right? She's the tallest, right? And she was trained from a young age to do, all the gauntlet training that they did and whatnot. Yeah. And she's the princess of the kingdom. It's her job to protect her kingdom. She does whatever she can to do that. And she doesn't go on a date with Mario the way it's shown here in the screen. They're actually going to go get help so that she can go defend her kingdom. It's what a normal person would do, regardless of whether you're male or female, in that position. The funny part is, she's not the hero. Mario's still the hero. He still ends up saving the day. How is that girl boss power?
Well, this is why I say I'm convinced now after this clip that she didn't actually watch the movie and somebody just told it, or either that or she read a synopsis and formulated this in her head because and looked at like screenshots or whatever. Because as you pointed out, this wasn't a date. There was no date in the movie at all. Ever. But the screenshot was not a date. This was them on their way to the Jungle Kingdom. But also the girl boss, girl power, whatever thing, they may have implied that in the marketing. To be honest, I didn't really see much of the marketing. I don't watch broadcast television. I watch everything on the internet, and I do that with an ad blocker. So I didn't see any trailers. I didn't see any marketing, but it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to push the strong women thing because the advertising company, the people responsible for clipping the trailers together, editing the trailers together, and they're probably a bunch of idiots going, people want to see strong, empowered women, and but the people who made the film were like, no, it's Princess Peach. This is just what she does, and there's a precedent for it, numerous precedent for it, because going all the way back to the second game, okay, she has not been a damsel in distress since Super Mario Brothers 2. Correct. In the first one, princess in another castle, you have to save her at the end. But she was a playable character in the second game and has not been the damsel in distress since then. She was I believe she was the ruler, or at least ruling by her father's side in Part 3 in Super Mario 3. And it was her dad who I think was in trouble or something that you had to go get the keys or whatever.
I don't recall, actually. I remember battling all the Koopa children.
Yeah, all the Koopa, all the Koopa cousins or whatever. But like, my point though is that she has not been a damsel in distress since the first game. She has been shown because she was a playable character in the second game, which is where you saw the floating dress that she did when she floated down.
Yes, that she was my character of choice in the second in the second game, and it was because of that specific floating ability, which she did in the movie. I was like, yes, that's so cool.
She's been in the Mario Kart games, the Mario Tennis games, the Mario Party games, basically all those other like spin-offs and stuff, which you may brush them off as but the thing, Super Mario RPG, she was in there. The point is that whether they're spin-offs and whether you brush them off or not, they stand as precedent for Peach being a skilled combatant.
Yep.
That she is skilled. And the one line, it summed it up just quick and easy. Quick and easy. I loved it. It was, as I say, I didn't like the one line Tosa. Here's one that I really did like. When Mario goes, "Oh man, you're so much better than me." In fact, they served it up. They served it up like on like a softball, like an underhanded softball pitch. Here you go. If you wanted something woke, and instead she goes, "Nah." She goes in one simple line. She goes, "I grew up here. Done. Done. Why are you so much better at this? I grew up here."
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I don't mind girl bosses as long as it makes sense and as long as it does not degrade her male counterpart, because I didn't grow up in a time where either gender was degrading either gender, right? Both genders respected each other and viewed each other as equals. And so to see her say that, and yeah, like going back to the marketing, right? The marketing kind of did make him look like a bumbling fool. But the movie itself, honestly, it diminishes that, it crashes that, because at the very opening, it shows his confidence, it shows his ability, right? He protects Luigi, he's Luigi's protector because he's the older brother, right? He stands up to the bully at the beginning, and then when they're going to their first client, right, and they go through the construction zone, he's got the abilities, the physical abilities to do all the things that he's doing to make him a capable person in her world. But to her point, like you just mentioned, she grew up there. So that's why he's making all of these mistakes, because all of this is completely new. It makes logical sense to me from every angle.
And I'd like to point out that she didn't say, like she didn't roll her eyes and go, "Of course you can't do it," or like, "Oh, another stupid male." She didn't say any comment like that. Again, like I said, they served it up as like an underhanded softball pitch, and she didn't make any sort of comment. Instead, she comforted him. She put a hand on his shoulder and said, "No, no, no,
correct.
Look, I grew up.
She was his support.
That's why I'm better." Yeah, she was his support. She said, "No, no, no. Look. I'm only better at this because I grew up here. I've been here. I'm used to all these power-ups. I'm used to how everything works, this thing." And they give a little joke like, yeah, I got it on the first try. But that was just a little joke. Didn't diminish him. She was supporting him. She said, "Look, and there was she never had that unbearable, because see, the actual girl boss thing, what makes an actual girl boss, girl power, whatever you want to label it, it's not just them being capable. That's not it, because that would mean all the characters that we actually like Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor from those classic 80s movies and 90s
Ahsoka
movies.
Tano.
Yeah, would be girl boss, and they're not. What makes an actual girl boss is that unbearable attitude, the snark. There's a constant little
like Captain Marvel,
shit-eating grin. Yeah, like they constantly have that little shit-eating smirk on their corner of their mouth, and they're always making these snarky ass remarks like they're better than everybody. There's just this unbearable attitude. That's what makes a girl boss. Peach was lovely. You know what she was? And I'll tell you, this is why she hates this, why her and all these other leftoids, these leftivists, why they hate it, because Peach was feminine. Despite her being capable and skilled, she was very feminine, because she cared, she was supportive, she was
nurturing,
balanced.
She was balanced.
And then the other thing, before I forget, just real quick before we move on, another thing that convinced me she didn't see the movie, she goes, "She didn't once do anything, princess in name only. She didn't once do anything about making any laws or anything." It's like, that's not the only thing a princess does. And is that really, would that make the movie more exciting for you if we saw Princess Peach in Congress?
Dude, she literally went to another kingdom to ask for help. That's the kingly thing to do.
But she did do princess things, because she gets up in front of all the and she gets up in front of all the toads and says, "I'm gonna go do this. You all stay here." She gives them like commands, and then goes to another kingdom to diplomatic, to get help, and then comes back with the army. So what the hell are you talking about? She didn't see the movie, dude. I'm telling you, she didn't see the movie.
So here's the funny part. Let's listen to her acknowledge the actual culture war here on this video. Listen to this.
Week's movie math, where the Super Mario Brothers movie is quite the game changer. A global phenomenon.
It's a game changer now.
We are about to have such a fascinating discussion. That's because this movie is a perfect storm at the box office and in conversation, because there are so many interesting elements at play. It's changed the video game movie formula forever, I think. It's become a pawn in the conservative culture war. Is this the anti-Disney movie? Yet fascinatingly, the biggest demographic to turn up is Latino audiences, themselves divided politically.
So first of all, okay, she acknowledges there's a culture war, right? She says that this is a move for the right wingers, right, or something. I'm paraphrasing, right? It's not a movie for right wingers. I don't see God. I don't see country. I don't see anything about Jesus Christ on here. It's just a freaking normal movie that you and I grew up watching. It had no political meaning whatsoever.
You know that scene with his family terrified them. People
probably
like her,
you're probably right.
She probably freaked out. If she actually saw the movie, she would have freaked out at that scene with the big family, because that's the one thing, and that's not even conservative per se. That's like natural. That's like it should be normal. It's sad that it's like considered right wing these days, but like that's really because you're right. There was no religious, with the exception of just the classic good versus evil. There was no overt religious imagery or Christian imagery specifically, but there was a big family. There was, heterosexual relationships and everything. But none of this should be. It's crazy to me that it's like, oh, that's right wing, that's conservative. It's like that's normal. What's wrong?
That's
with
right wing
people,
extremism.
These people are sick.
They are, and here's the funny part at the end. First of all, how the heck did they get the Latino number? Nobody asked me what my background was when I bought the ticket. So how the heck did they get, what was it, 41% or something like that? 41% Hispanic.
John Leguizamo, I guess he didn't do enough tweeting.
Where did that come from, number one? And then what the hell does she mean by we're divided politically? Doesn't she? So she knows nothing about the Hispanic community, because if she did, she would know that Hispanics are traditionally conservative in their values and belief. It's the Hispanics that come here or are born here in this country that tend to be liberal, right? So your first and second generation American from Hispanic backgrounds tend to be liberal. But as far as like the core belief system, we're all traditional. We believe in traditional marriages. We God, country, nationalism. Same gender marriages. Obviously, the nucleus of the family. The vast majority of Hispanic countries believe in that stuff. So I don't know what she's talking about with the political divide. I would really like to. I would have wanted her to delve a little bit more into that. But anyhow, no, like I said, nobody asked me what my background was when I bought the ticket. Anywho, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm looking at this. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, like, how do they just have somebody standing outside the theater with like one of those little tickers in their hand, and they got one for white people and like one for they click every time they see somebody.
I don't know, but she made a claim about it not being woke. So let's take a look at this video.
Then, as I said, Super Mario Brothers found itself a pawn in the current culture wars, with a number of conservative pundits claiming the film's success is a blow against Disney, who they're currently at war with, and praising the film also for not being quote-unquote woke. They also claim that critics were against the film because it didn't fit with their leftist agenda, ignoring the fact that even conservative newspapers gave the film very bad reviews. Look at this scathing review from the UK's ultra-conservative Telegraph.
So we'll stop it right there. So I don't know what the definition of anti-woke is. To me, anti-woke would be the opposite, like, of what they're doing. I would want to see, for anti-woke, I would want to see like American flags everywhere, patriotism, God, the Bible, Second Amendment, right? That's what I would say would be good, men being men and women being women, right? No questions who they are, right? I don't see this as being anti-woke. I just see it as being a regular film, which is what you and I were used to. I mean, I just finished watching Shark Tales and I don't know what other animated film that was done back in 2004. I was like, oh my gosh, there's like no identity politics in this. How did we get from there to where we're at here? And then I don't really understand who the Telegraph. First of all, I've never heard of them before. Okay, so they're a right winger. They probably haven't seen the movie either. I don't even know if they are or if they aren't. But they're giving it 1 star supposedly. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm a right winger, Jason. You're a right winger, and we don't get that. This was a phenomenal film, and it was just normal.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, for one, it almost. I don't know why she chose to do this, because it basically disproves her point. She's saying, oh, they're using it as a pawn in their anti-woke agenda, or whatever however she worded it. Again, using buzzwords that we had previously used that upset them, agenda, things like that, and and calling it anti-woke. But then shows that there are right-wing outlets out there, apparently from the UK, one from that she uses as an example, that don't like it. So it almost disproves her point. But here's my point, though, is that I wanted to say is why, because you were saying, like, anti-woke would be this and that, which you're not wrong, but you have to remember something. The way that these people have operated this whole time, man, I mean, it's been like this for a couple of years now, with the rise of cancel culture and everything. If you aren't far left, anything to the right or to the center of far left is far right to them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you've probably seen this. Like, you know, like I said, with cancel culture, anything like it, where it's not about, because you weren't wrong about actual anti-woke would be putting our messages in there hardcore, but they don't think like that. If you don't agree with them 100%, you know, zealously agree with them, you are against them. You are hateful. You are bigoted. You are, you know, anti-woke or far right, you know, whatever they want to label you. But that's what you have to keep in mind. That's what you have, because I'm sure, you know, it's frustrating, you know, when you're watching her and going like, what are you talking about? I want to, but see, it doesn't even matter, because her brain doesn't even operate. None of them even operate that way. Yep. If you're not 100% in line, in step, then you're a hateful bigot. You're against.
However you define anti-woke, I mean, if being normal is anti-woke, then sure, the film is anti-woke. And we're talking about, at this juncture, why this film is successful. There was no political undertones. There was no identity politics involved in it. It was just good, classic, traditional animation. The story, yes, was simplistic, but it needs to be simplistic because it's meant for children. It's not meant for adults. You know what I'm saying? If you start injecting things that shouldn't belong, first of all, in a children's film, that's why you get the dismal numbers that they're currently getting, because that's all they've been doing is injecting it. Now, I'm going to play this one video here next where I think Grace accidentally manages to touch on the success of the film. Check this out.
Now, The Last of Us got tremendous results and definitely expanded its fan base while still pleasing its core OG fandom. Oh, that was beautiful. But then here comes Super Mario Brothers, where creator Miyamoto insisted that there would be hardly any story in this movie, just like in the game. And while critics didn't care for that result, we'll talk about the critics a little bit more in this video, just put a pin in that. But critics didn't care for it, and I also suspect that a lot of non-Mario fans didn't even bother to see the movie this weekend.
So again, she's trashing on the film, right? But I want to go back to what she says with the Last of Us. She says it brings in new audience while serving the OG base, meaning the legacy fan base, right? That knew this storyline. Do you understand that that's what we've been complaining regarding when it comes to DC and Marvel and anything that has to do with pop culture? You can do things in a way that brings in the new audience while not disrespecting the reason why those films are there. And I, for one, they've lost me. Like, for instance, we talked about Shazam 2 in my opening monologue. I was going to go see Shazam 2, but as soon as the director started talking about diversity and inclusion and how one of the characters confirmed is gay and gay Latino, Latinx, guess what? You lost me. You just lost $100 that my family was going to pour into that film. Again, it's just a drop in the bucket. But, you know, if I'm thinking like this, I'm sure there's thousands of other people that are also thinking like this, hence why they're losing the millions that they're losing.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to do. I know people like to throw around the get woke, go broke, and people will fire back and say no company's actually gone broke, which is true. No company has actually gone broke from going woke, but that's not the point. They're
small. They're small. There's actually some that have ones, but, some small. But there was one shop that was trying to. There was like a coffee shop. I don't know where it was, and they were trying to implement socialism where you kind of just pay whatever you want and you go, and they ran out of business real quick because that's not business doesn't work on feelings, right? Math is still math, money is still money.
Well, and that's the point, is that even the ones that don't, like the big corporations like Disney and stuff, that aren't going to go broke, but we can still make more of it, because you can talk about it on Twitter. You can they don't care. They don't listen to that stuff. They don't read that stuff. But they notice when the sales are down.
Correct.
Notice how they've either delayed or outright canceled a bunch of movies from Star Wars and Marvel, and so how they normally have all these timelines of movies that are going to come out all throughout the year. Like they flood the theaters all throughout the year. Now they cut back on a lot of that.
Yeah, they're going to concentrate. According to Bob Iger, they're going to concentrate on quality versus quantity. The question that I have regarding quality: are you going to change your woke message agenda or not? That's really the big
He's
question,
not.
right?
No, because he's blowing smoke up your ass. I'll tell you that right now.
Right,
because
I know
he's saying that. He's saying that to cover why they actually canceled. They actually canceled everything because it's doing terrible in sales and viewership and all that. You know, whether it's a Disney Plus thing, a movie, whatever it may be, it's all doing terrible. That's why. But he's making it. He's going, oh no, we just want to focus on quality. But you're not actually focused on quality because you're still. In fact, I don't have a direct quote or anything, but I know that there were articles going around saying that he was actually doubling down on the woke stuff. So yeah, he might be saying, "Oh, it's going to be quality over quantity," but no, they're doubling down on the woke agenda. Disney's going to continue doing that. But back to my original point about the whole get woke, go broke thing, is that small companies might actually go broke, but most of these companies don't. Most of these big ones that we talk about, like Bud Light, they're losing a lot of money. They've taken a hit. They're not going broke though. But that's the point, is that they're taking enough of a hit, you get their attention. That's what it's all about. My point was that they're not going to look at your Twitter post. They're not going to look at your YouTube video, but they're going to look at the minus $4 billion or whatever it is on their bottom line. That's what they're going to look at.
You're right. Bud Light is currently, I think, on pace to lose. I think the confirmed number so far is $6 billion. They're tracking to $7 billion loss, and so we'll get into that a little bit later. But here's the bottom line: is honestly why I think this movie was successful. Is obviously some of the things that we touched on here. But no matter what, like we mentioned, there's always going to be people that are going to hate it. And right now, even bigger than Grace Randolph is this loser, John Leguizamo, who was in the '90s film. He was in the news not too long ago. I think he's trying to just be relevant again. He was in the news for saying that that there's not enough Latino representation and so on and so forth, or people who should be in Latin characters aren't. I don't really quite remember, but I remember him being Luigi in the '90s movie, and he's not Italian. He's Puerto Rican. So if we go by his thought process, he should have never been cast for that movie whatsoever. But here's what I want to really focus on: the stupidity of his claims. In this particular movie, he's talking about how there's a lack of representation or lack of diversity from the Latino community. Listen, there was no such thing in the original game. That's number one. But number two, the actress that plays Peach, or that does the voice acting for Peach, is from Argentina. She was born and raised in Argentina, or she was born and raised for the first 6 years of Argentina before moving, I think, overseas to the UK. And if I'm not mistaken, one of her parents is from Spain, while the other one is from Argentina or something of that nature. So she's a full-blown Hispanic. So this guy's so stupid. I can't stand people like him, like they think like that. Like, what does it matter if they're Latino or not? Can they portray the character that they need to portray? Yes or no? And here's a video of her actually speaking Spanish, right? Which I hope he actually watches. Check this out.
Hola amigos, soy Anya Taylor-Joy y quiero celebrar junto con ustedes el Día de Mario. No se pierdan Super Mario Bros. La película solo en cine.
What a moron. She is fluent in Spanish. I'm sure you didn't understand what she said, but she is absolutely fluent in Spanish. She sounds like she's Hispanic. So this, again, I think that he's become so irrelevant. He needs to get somebody's attention, right, in order for him to be relevant again.
Yeah, no, it's a clear grab for a little bit of clout while he can. I mean, he was in the bad Super Mario movie. Like, what is he talking about, man? Like, why would you want to remind anybody that you were in that movie? Like, most people want people to forget that they were in that movie. But that's the thing, is you already made all the points. Is that his logic is like doubly flawed, because for one, there is Latino representation, as you pointed out, with Peach's voice actress, but then also, if that's what matters, he had no business being in the 90s, the bad one from the 90s, because they're Italian. They're Italian.
Yeah.
And Yeah,
He has to have some
it's
Italian in him, though. That last name is not Puerto Rican last name. Leguizamo, that's not a
right.
typical Puerto Rican last name. So he's got Italian somewhere in there. But the point is the stupidity behind it. I listen, as a person, I should be able to relate to good versus evil despite who's on the screen. Like when Black Panther jumped on the scene in Civil War, I was so stoked. I was like, "Oh man, Black Panther!" I couldn't wait. I have a little statue figurine of him I bought out. I was so I love prior to the woke stuff invading comics. I loved pretty much all the characters. There wasn't not one person that I didn't relate to because it was just good versus evil. Even the female superheroes, Wonder Woman's one of my favorites. She's actually my favorite female superhero, right? So because she's a female, I can't relate to her. No, she's fighting evil. She's good. That's all I need to relate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's I don't know. It's more of just the focus on trivial things to drum up attention, and
it's stupid.
I ignore that. I think it's just ignore him. He wants attention. Just ignore him.
It drives me nuts because then. It just drives me nuts because it's like you're saying that us right wingers are the racist. Who's the one that's focused on race? You guys are so hyper focused on race and sexuality and blah 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 blah. I'm just focused on good story, good character development, good versus evil. That's it. And then what happens is their hypocrisy, because now let's get into the current issue that's going on right now, which is they casted someone in for the Lilo and Stitch movie, live action movie that they're doing, and apparently the characters are all from Hawaii, and one of the actresses that they picked was born in Hawaii, but she's not dark skinned enough as the characters portray. Let's listen to Eric July, my man. I love Rippaverse, so let's listen to his comments here.
Young Rippa.
Recent casting of Lilo and Stitch actor, who I believe is I believe that she is a native of Hawaii, but she has fair skin. And you had this one person who says, that ain't the nanny I grew up with. She's also said that Hallie's the perfect Ariel. Two completely different. Obviously, look, the controversy for you guys that don't understand it, that's, again, her skin is fair in comparison to the animation. All of a sudden, they care about accuracy again. We've seen this stuff with the comic book stuff that I've been griping about for years, and that when it's advantageous to them, all of a sudden they care so much about the accuracy. But any other time, it doesn't have to be exactly like the source material, or it doesn't have to exactly be like this. It doesn't have to be like that. And you're just a man, baby. You're just griping. But then all of a sudden, now they got a problem.
He hits it right on the head, and that's exactly what's going on. How can you support swapping characters of race, gender, and sexuality before, but now, and you know what? It's funny. I never thought that we would actually get something even remotely close to this. So this is phenomenal because it proves exactly what you and I have been saying for quite some time when it comes to this. If there was ever a reverse, we on the right, people that like source material, would oppose it. Our reaction would be, we can bet that the left is not going to react the same way. They're gonna moan and complain because of the swap, and it's proving true as we speak.
Yeah, this was only a meme. The meme has become reality once again. If you're familiar with Babylon Bee,
yes,
they're that parody news site, but the stuff they come up with, it used to be, was so crazy that it was like, aha, it's a parody. But now they're prophets. They're prophetic, because all of their parody, well, not all, but a lot of their parody headlines have come true. So here is another meme. Here is another parody headline, coming true, right? Coming true. The memes are reality now. And it's pretty wild to see it happening, man.
So let me ask you this, kind of wrap up a little bit here. Should Disney be taking notes? When we look at how bad the like versus dislike ratio on the new Marvel's trailer Apparently, it's like over 400 dislikes. Has over 400 likes, but also 400,000. Excuse me, 400,000 dislikes, 400,000 likes. So it's kind of like a 50-50, based on what I'm hearing. When we look at things like the Bud Light sales, right? Disney losing $120 billion. I don't know if you've heard, but HBO is supporting J.K. Rowling on a new project that she's going to be involved in. They're actually standing their ground against the woke mob that went after her. We have people like Ben Stiller defending his ground on the Rolling Thunder movie with Robert Downey Jr. Acting as a black guy. Jennifer Aniston has come out recently and doesn't quite understand how her friend's show that she starred in could be offensive, and she goes on to say our society's become so fragile and so on. So, is America finally starting to push back against the woke agenda?
Yes, I think we are seeing some of that. Now, the thing about it is that a lot of people have been pushing back. Like there's anybody who's been paying attention to the culture war we are in a culture war. It is going on. I mean, you saw Grace earlier admit to it, and anybody who tries to deny it just is trying to gaslight you. But that's the thing, is that we've been in the culture war for a while. So technically the pushback has been there for a minute. What I think is a more accurate descriptor is that the amount of people that are pushing back is finally starting to spill over, because for the longest time people were, and honestly, I think this is what the other side was banking on, is that for the longest time people were just letting it slide. They would shake their fist. You might even see him get angry about it. You might see him say something on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, whatever the social media, you might see him, shaking their fist, maybe on a news channel or something, people talking. But then that was where it would stop. No one would really do anything. Even when it came, we would talk about get woke and go broke. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but even in the early days of that, nobody was really doing anything. People were still going to watch Disney movies, these Marvel movies and stuff. Man, I can't even tell you that. I can't tell you the last.
People still going to go watch the NFL.
Yeah. People said so. So there was a lot of sound and fury, but nothing actually happening, right?
Yep.
And I think what we're finally seeing is it's not that the pushback is starting; it's been there. But what you're seeing is that the lines that have, because use the term pushback, you're pushing back. What are you pushing back against? Them pushing that line of what's acceptable in society, right? And so we've been pushing back, but what's been happening is we haven't been gaining any ground or really even sanity. They've been gaining ground. And so what you're seeing is they're pushing that line has now gotten to a point where now the people that have been pushing it back, you've gotten to that line, it's gotten to that point where everyone's like, all right, now we're not, it's no more just shaking your fist. It's no more of just saying all this stuff, saying you don't like it. Now we're doing stuff. Now you see people going out and doing their own protests. Now you see when people say get woke, go broke, it actually does something. Bud Light losing all that money. Disney losing. Look at Disney Plus losing millions of subscribers and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I think that's what's happening. You've had people that have been sick of this stuff, but the numbers are growing and they've pushed it to a point now where, and that's what I was kind of waiting for this to happen. I wish it wouldn't have gotten this far, but I was also kind of like, well, I think this is where it's going to have to go, is that they were going to have to get to a point where they pushed us too far. They've done it. And now it's time. So I think that's what you're really seeing. That's what you're really seeing is you're seeing that they've pushed the line so far that now it's go time,
And we can measure that because, like I said, being gay isn't anything new. Being gay in the films isn't anything new. One of my absolute favorite comedy is actually The Wedding Crashers. There's a gay guy, the brother of the girl. I forget the character's name, but he was gay. Nobody had a problem there. Nobody had a problem with the fact that he was gay or any. It was comedic, obviously, but everybody there was comedic. So it has nothing to do with being gay. It has to do with what you're doing now. You're putting it everywhere. You're shoving it down people's throats. You're trying to indoctrinate children. You're trying to confuse children. And I think that's the line that's really been crossed, is where it's not even that you're putting it and everything, you've crossed the line where you're trying to get at children, right? You're trying to do things deceptively. You're trying to confuse them. You're trying to bank on their naivete, if you will, or how easily they are swayed. I think Bill Maher talks about this. He was like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pirate. Thankfully, my parents didn't pluck out an eye and take me to, cut off my arm and get a hook or a peg leg or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And he's absolutely right, because kids are so impressionable. So I agree with you. Now, I do want to end with this note. The formula for success, and I think, like I said, Grace touched on it, but there's a couple of things that I hope Hollywood and Disney and the others will learn from. And that's number one. People love source material when it comes to movies because it's familiar. If they have a character that they are familiar with, don't change it. It's already been established. We're okay with you creating a new character. Want to create a new character? By all means, create a new gay character. You want to put a new Latino in there or a black person in there? Fine, go for it. Run wild. But don't change already established characters. Second, stop pushing leftist ideology and identity politics. We want to go to the movies to be entertained. We don't want to get preached to. We don't want to be indoctrinated, to use Grace's quotes. We just want to be taken to a different world, away from all the noise, away from all the nonsense, and we just want to enjoy ourselves for the next hour and a half, especially if it's a family-oriented film. It really shouldn't have anything divisive or inappropriate in there whatsoever. Female characters can absolutely be strong as long as they don't belittle their male counterparts, right? We've already established that, and it's got to make sense like it did with the Peach Story. Keep family-oriented films clean and appropriate. I'm sorry, but this movement of the LGBTQ community, it is not an established science in the sense that you are born this way. It is up for debate, and we can very easily see that because there are people that have transitioned, right, in the trans community. They've transitioned, and now they're detransitioning because they've committed a mistake. They've realized that they were deceived, or they were taken in the wrong direction. They were actually pushed. Some people actually say that they were pushed. Let me ask you this, Jason. If I've gone through alcoholism and I've overcome alcoholism, I have that experience to alcohol to defeat or get over that issue, I would be in best place to talk about or against that, right, to help other people with their alcoholism. So wouldn't that make sense that these people that are detransitioning be given a voice and a platform so that their voices could be heard, and that way somebody who's thinking about doing that transition has all of the information possible so that they can determine and make a better assessment for themselves?
Exactly.
So as long as that remains and listen, we have activists, because I get people that send me articles about people being born this way, and listen, we know that there's activism everywhere. We know that there's propagandists everywhere. I remember in the 80s when people used to go before the professionals, used to go before Congress and tell you, no, there is no link to smoking and cancer. Cigarettes don't give you lung cancer. They were testifying before Congress. These were the experts. No, they were just paid for shills. They were doing whatever the corporate cigars and cigarette companies wanted them to say, right? So I don't buy that, and I know from personal friends that I've talked to, I have some that now say that they have been, but I also know some in the past that say that they weren't. So anyhow, it's not an exact science. There's no consensus on that area. The other thing is stop focusing or hyper focusing on the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Films that you and I and shows that you and I grew up in have always been inclusive. They've always had diversity. This equity thing is garbage. It's just a way to say anti-white racism, right? That's what they're doing, is they're promoting white racism. And so I'm sorry, you don't need to hyper-focus. If a director or production or a company is going to put in those acronyms or those words in there, it already turns me off. I don't want to watch it anymore. That's just the way it is.
I look out for those words if I see anybody throwing those around that's involved with the production, whether it's the actors, the director, anybody who's. It's one thing if somebody, just some rando, or even like a critic or somebody, they're being diverse, blah, blah. Well, that's just what you think. But if somebody from the production actually, we're gonna make this diverse. Okay, yeah, done. I'm done with you. Or if I see something like in the material itself, like for instance, the recent Spider-Man, the Into the Spider-Verse trailer with Miles Morales, not Spider-Man, it's Miles Morales. But on his backpack, he's got a little BLM sticker or button or whatever. And then some other character was shown in the background of her bedroom having a trans flag that said "Protect Trans Kids" on it.
Yep.
So those are two slogans that I am very much against. And I mean, that just tells me you don't even have to say diversity, equity, inclusion. That just tells me that that's what you're
Correct.
about, having those types
And
of things in the movie. So
I watched
yeah,
the first
I avoid that
Spider-Verse.
stuff.
Yeah, I watched the first Spider-Verse film, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And yeah, I saw those things, in the trailer, and now I'm turned off. Now, you know what? Here's the funny part: Marvel hasn't gotten $1 of mine in the last 2 or 3 years as far as movies go, and neither has DC. I'm boycotting anybody that degrades me as a male, and then is openly practicing racism towards anybody. I won't accept it towards whites, I won't accept it towards blacks, and I won't accept it towards Hispanics or Asians or anything else, right? I grew up in a time where we were all equal. We were based on our character, the judgment of our character, not the color of our skin. And so to see this reverse racism happening, I'm not okay with it, and I won't be giving my money to support anything that goes in that direction. So, but yeah, man,
same here, man, 100%.
I think that wraps up the formula for success, which, to be quite honest with you, is there in the Mario film, and I think that's part of the reason why they've been so successful. So listen, man, I want to thank you for coming on and onto this podcast and talking about this. This is, again, right up our alley, so I appreciate you, brother. Any last comments that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, I was just saying thank you for having me on, and yeah, it was definitely interesting talking about this stuff. It's something I think it's important that we do make our voices heard. It's one of those things that I may have downplayed earlier, all the, as I called it, the sound and fury of people shaking their fists online, proverbially speaking. But I do think it's important that we do speak up and speak out so that others see, okay, because a lot of times, and they do this to us on purpose, they want to make us feel isolated.
Yep.
They want to make you think that you're the only one who feels that way, and that everyone else is going along with all this nonsense, and that you're the weirdo, or that you're the odd one out for feeling the way that you do, which is not the case. As you can see, there's a lot of us, we talked about it, there's a lot of us pushing back now, there's a lot of us out there, but we have to let other people know, because that's what's going to encourage you, because then you see, so I'm not alone, so they don't all think this way, so maybe I should speak out too, or maybe I'll stop seeing this, because that's the thing too. Think how difficult it would be is to cut out watching Disney movies if that's what all your friends see. But if you see there's other people that don't watch they cut out the Disney movies. Now you got somebody to talk to something else. Talk to something else, about with them. So I think it's really important. So I appreciate you having me on, man. Keep up the good work on your podcast here. And if anybody wants to find me, you can find me on YouTube, Orbital Bacon on YouTube. I don't really talk too much politics. I try to keep it lighthearted, talking about random, Transformers, other pop culture stuff. But I certainly don't hide my opinion. I'll put it that way. I don't hide my opinion on things.
You're always welcome on this show to talk politics, bro. That's what this podcast specifically is for. It's for politics. So you're welcome. You're welcome to speak your mind here anytime you want.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
All right, brother. Have a good night. Take care to all the fans out there. Patriots, God bless. See you next time.